welcome to Whispers of Ink. I'm Machado de Assis, and now I will read one of my stories.
Let's start with the book A Carnival Day, which is part of my novels collection. Chapter 1. It was back in the days when Carnival was still called intrudo, a time when instead of masks, people threw perfumed oranges, poured pots of water, and played all sorts of pranks, some of which have been replaced by others, maybe better, maybe worse. 2 days before the intrudo began, Donna Angelica Sanchez's whole family was busy making those scented citrus fruits. It was a sight to see. The young ladies, the maids, the boys, and the servants, all sitting around a big table, carefully preparing the oranges and lemons that would, by next Sunday, drench some unsuspecting passer-by or even a close friend of the family. At that time, Donna Angelica was 59 years old. She was born around the time of Tiradentes' conspiracy. Raised by a farmer in Minas Gerais, she had grown up with certain liberal ideas, but those changed in 1808 when she came to Rio de Janeiro and saw the arrival of the royal court with her own eyes. Although this change in Donna Angelica's political views probably came from a crush on a Royal Guard archer, someone like him physically speaking, she belonged to that kind of woman who could knock down a pig with a single blow of a stick. Besides having strong shoulders, she had a bold spirit, always ready to face any challenge and overcome it. It seemed that her boyfriend didn't care much for delicate, fragile women, the kind who seemed soft and weak. He liked a woman with strength, someone who looked healthy and ready for work. Angelica had all of that. They fell in love, and after some time they got married. Their wedding was celebrated with joy by friends and acquaintances. It doesn't really matter what happened to Mr. Tomas Sanchez during the time these events take place. All you need to know is that he died when his life finally came to an end, which probably didn't happen before his health gave out completely. Anyway, it's not wise to talk too much about the late Tomas Sanchez around Donna Angelica. Even today, the poor lady still mourns him. On the morning of the big day, the whole house was full of excitement. The servants had cleaned everything from top to bottom. The kitchen smelled like fresh bread and oranges, and the table was set for a big lunch. Donna Angelica walked around like a general before a battle, giving orders and checking every detail. "Maria," she called out, "did you put the sugar in the oranges?" "Yes, ma'am," Maria replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "And the water pots? Are they ready?" "They are," Maria said. "We filled them just before sunrise." Donna Angelica nodded. "Good. The neighbors will remember this intrudo for a long time." At that moment, her nephew, João, came in from the street, laughing and holding a wet towel. "Tia Angelica," he said. "You should have seen the face of Sir Francisco when I threw the water on him." She smiled proudly. "That's the spirit. But don't get too comfortable. The day is young, and the best pranks are still to come." Joan grinned. "I'm ready for anything." And with that, the house filled with laughter, the smell of citrus, and the joy of a celebration that, for Donna Angelica and her family, was more than just a holiday. It was a tradition, a way of life, and a reason to feel alive. The moment you brought up a man deserving of respect, love, and admiration, Donna Angelica would immediately bring up her husband, Sanchez, who, by the way, became rich in just a few years. Their marriage was anything but barren. From this blessed union came 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls. The boys were named Carlos and Benjamin. The girls were Teresa, Ermelinda, and Joanna. Each child had their own unique feature. Joanna had a very long nose, Ermelinda was tiny, and Teresa was tall and full-figured. As for the boys, the only real difference between Carlos and Benjamin was that Carlos laughed in Benjamin's face once a week, every week, and Benjamin never once got revenge for this insult. Recently, the insult had been so bad that Benjamin decided it was best to stop talking to his brother altogether. It had already been 5 days since their diplomatic silence began when the Intrudo festival came along and fixed everything. At the moment we meet the Sanchez family, they were all getting along just fine. They were busy pouring hot wax into lemon-shaped molds, or filling the ones that were already done with scented water. It would be unfair not to mention another young man involved in making the wax lemons, the cheerful and thin Batista, who owned a small shop selling buttons and threads on the same street where the Sanchez family lived. He was friendly with the girls and, rumor had it, was even dating Teresa. Also present was Donna Angelica's cousin, Donna Maria, who was 42 years old, and Donna Maria's niece, Donna Lucinda, who was 26. Lucinda was the daughter of Maria, and both were helping with the wax. The pots filled with melted wax were brought to the table, and everyone dipped their lemons and oranges into it, or poured wax into the wooden molds. "Look, cousin, this one came out really well," said Lucinda, showing off her work. "Did you see mine?" Teresa asked. "How many do you have?" Lucinda replied. 12. "I have 9. I already made 24, Carlos announced proudly. Benjamin, meanwhile, had only made 5. Benjamin looked down, his face burning with embarrassment. "I don't know what's wrong with my pie crust," he said quietly. "You're just clumsy. That's all you are," Carlos shot back. "Carlos, what's wrong with you?" "I don't want any trouble," said Donna Angelica. She had just walked in from the back of the house with her cousin Donna Maria and was telling her a story about vegetables and the slaves. "Aunt Maria hasn't done anything today," the Sanchez girls said together. "I made 2 lemon pies," Maria replied. "Only 2? That's not much," one of the girls said. "All right, girls, give me a pie tin." "I don't want to look lazy," Maria said. She sat down and slowly made a few more pies. There was a long silence after that. The only sounds were the slaves moving around, the bell at the gate downstairs, and Batista's loud sniffing. He had a bad cold. Donna Angelica, who had been walking around the room, came over to the table. "Okay, stop that for now. We need to set the table," she said. "Already, mother?" the girls cried out. "Well, yes. It's already 2:30. Carlos secretly agreed with the idea of setting the table. Donna Maria, who usually ate lunch at 1, thought Donna Angelica was absolutely right. "You're correct, cousin. If we leave these girls here, they might stay until tomorrow," she said. Batista, speaking with a stuffy voice, disagreed. "It's not wise," he said, "to stop working while the wax is still warm. Wax is a product that doesn't make dinner," Carlos interrupted rudely. He put his pie tin aside and stood up. The girls kept asking to stay, and they worked for another 15 minutes making pies. Benjamin tried to stand too, but Lucinda gave him a look that stopped him right in his seat. And if you ask me, even someone not very clever could see by now that the two young people were in love. Carlos' exit was a relief for everyone. He was the oldest son of Donna Angelica, but he was also the kind of person who could ruin any party. The room grew quieter once he was gone. Batista could finally steal more glances at Teresa, and Benjamin winked at Lucinda with more ease. If Carlos hadn't left the room, he surely would have teased. Looks like romance is in the air. Come on. Batista, what's going on? And you, Lucinda, are we keeping secrets now? He always knew how to make the guilty ones blush until their faces burned red with embarrassment. I mention all this because it happened on April 7th. And phrases like that always made the cheeks of the shy ones glow like fire. Batista, now more relaxed without Carlos around, decided to share a couple of sayings he had picked up. One of them, he said, came from a priest, the wisest man he had ever met. Oh, that priest sounds like my dear Tomas, Donna Angelica chimed in. What wisdom he had. What a brilliant mind. God rest his soul. Let me tell you what happened back in the days of April 7th. Just then, hungry Carlos burst into the room. The moment he saw a story about the Beijinonin that Job himself might have found long-winded, he cried out, "Mom, are we eating dinner tonight or not?" "I know, dear," replied Donna Angelica. "Well, wrap it up then." Carlos threw himself at the table and made so much noise that both the story and the memory of Thomas had to be put aside. Donna Angelica postponed sharing the tale of her late friend's wisdom. The girls got up from the table, and the maid came in to set the dinner plates. Taking advantage of the break-in since Donna Angelica had kindly invited him to stay for dinner, Batista stepped out for a moment to check his shop and see if anything new had happened. Teresa, quick as a whisper, went straight to the window and shared a secret smile with her sweetheart. Meanwhile, Donna Maria sat down with Ermelinda in a quiet corner of the room. She leaned in and asked, "Have you noticed anything going on between Teresa and Batista?" "I think there might be," Ermelinda replied. "But I'm not sure. Have you heard anything?" "No, nothing," Ermelinda said, shaking her head. "But surely something must be going on. If it's true, you'll have to talk to your mother about it." "Why?" Ermelinda asked, surprised. "It's not right," Donna Maria said firmly. "Your sister deserves better than a shop owner. A man who sells buttons and thread. That's no future for her. She deserves more." Ermelinda stayed quiet, but she promised herself she'd tell her sister everything as soon as she could. Carlos paced back and forth across the dining room, occasionally flicking little paper balls at his brother, who, just to avoid trouble, pretended to be counting the floorboards. Meanwhile, Joanna was telling Lucinda about a boy she once dated from Rua do Piolho, while their cousin kept sneaking glances at Benjamin. "This dinner is taking forever," Carlos complained, grabbing a piece of bread from the table and chewing it to quiet his stomach. "It feels like they'll never finish setting the table. Aunt Maria must be starving by now." "You're not wrong," Donna Maria replied. "I certainly am." At last, the dinner was finally laid out on the table. "All right, let's dig in," Carlos said, already moving toward his seat. "No way," Donna Angelica interrupted. "We wait for Batistina." "Where did he go?" "He went home." "What?" Now we have to wait for someone who's not even here. And of all people, him. Carlos, his mother scolded. You'll always be like this. Donna Angelica let the comment hang in the air without responding. Carlos stuffed his hands into his pants pockets and resumed pacing, now looking like a man at the edge of despair. I'm serious. I could just walk out and eat at a restaurant. Well then, go ahead. Just then, footsteps could be heard on the stairs. Thank God, Carlos exclaimed. Here comes the man we've all been waiting for. But it wasn't. It was Mr. Tiburcio Mendes, a trader of fresh slaves, a large round man with a red face and neatly dressed. May I come in, Donna Angelica? He called from the staircase. Of course, Mr. Tiburcio. Welcome, she replied. As he entered, Mr. Tiburcio greeted everyone with exaggerated politeness. Just what we needed, Carlos muttered to himself. Another turtle slowing things down. He was already seriously thinking about walking out to eat at the restaurant when finally, Batista arrived. Batista explained the delay by saying he had gotten into an argument with a man over size 5 needles a detail that interested absolutely no one. Still, everyone listened with the patience of saints. Carlos and his sister spent the entire day making scented oranges. Tiburcio, who had just arrived, stayed with them most of the time, chatting with the girls and watching them work. He really liked being around women and found their company very pleasant. But as the sun went down, Donna Angelica asked him to join a card game. She loved to play, and so did her sister, Donna Maria. The table for the game was set up right next to where the oranges were being made. They played a simple card game called Solo, using corn kernels as money. For them, it was just for fun, like drinking plain water to someone who likes wine. No real excitement, but still enjoyable. Tiburcio agreed to play, but he made it clear he wanted to leave by 9 o'clock. That's when we have tea, Donna Angelica said, as she shuffled the cards. Everyone played the hand. Since they all talked at once, the conversation was quite lively. Bolo? Bring it on. Give me some wax. Give me the ace of spades. Where is the mold? Is it a hole? It's safe. Sister, don't crush my orange. Ill cut. Look, Lucinda, that's a beautiful orange you made. King. Scented water? Jack. Don't step on my feet, Mr. Batista. Queen. Pay up. Pass me the tray. Who's dealing the cards? At the end of the game, Tiburcio smiled and said, I thought for sure the solo was fixed. He didn't say anything else, but he seemed amused. He kept his word and left right at 9. No one tried to stop him. He said goodbye, thanked them for the invitation, and stepped outside into the cool night air. Carlos and his sisters went back to their oranges. The house was full of the smell of citrus and wax. It was a peaceful evening, the kind that makes you feel like something good is about to happen. The gold cards were in the hands of Lady Donna Maria, and if she didn't get rid of the jack, there was a good chance I'd find it in my hand, and I'd be ruined. My cousin played badly, said Donna Angelica. She should have waited for it in the other suits. I was waiting for clubs. But clubs were safe. At 9 o'clock, the game ended. Tea was served, Tiburcio left, and everyone went to sleep. Sunday morning arrived with a beautiful sun. It was a perfect intrudo day, the Brazilian version of Carnival, full of laughter and mischief. Early in the morning, trays were lined up and ready for battle. Carlos and Benjamin prepared large pots of water and sent 2 to the stable. At that moment, a small argument broke out between the 2 brothers. Carlos ended up pulling Benjamin's ears, and Benjamin, just to say something, threatened to stab him, which earned him another ear-pulling from his brother. It was a very bad idea for Batista to choose that day to ask for Dona Teresa's hand in marriage. The young woman thought that a joyful day like this would put Donna Angelica in a good mood. But she was wrong. Donna Angelica, although not playing in the intrudo herself, enjoyed watching the young people have fun and paid little attention to anything else. The day started well. A few men walking by were hit with half a dozen perfume-filled lemons. They left the street a bit wet, and that was all. Lunch was served earlier than usual. By 3:30, the girls were dressed and ready by the windows. The living room was full of trays stacked with lemons. The boys left the house for a moment. An hour passed without anything special happening. Outside, the street buzzed with constant water fights. The boys, armed with lemons, threw them at the ladies at the windows, and the women responded with a strength no one had ever seen before. At Dona Angelica's house, there were about 1,200 lemons. Imagine how strong the battle could be. After an hour of fighting, Lucinda disappeared into the house. Donna Maria and Donna Angelica sat in the living room, chatting about the adventures of their youth. Now and then, someone would throw a lemon at one or the other, and they would laugh. Donna Maria decided to go inside the house and left for a moment. She came back soon after, clearly shaken. "Oh my God! Help me, Cousin Angelica. Goodness. Revenge." Everyone was surprised. The girls turned to look at her, and the boys, seeing all those backs turned toward them, started throwing lemons like crazy. "What's going on?" asked Donna Angelica, shocked. "Is it the left-handed one?" "Left-handed? No. I want revenge. Can you believe this insult?" "But what happened?" Donna Maria could barely breathe. She sat down, drank some water, and said, "I was walking inside just now and I found something in the dining room, in the corner. Guess what it was? I saw your son Benjamin squeezing lemons on my daughter's shoulder. What a shame. I couldn't believe it. Can you accept this, cousin? That dog. He had the nerve to." "Calm down, cousin. Tell me everything." By this time, Lucinda had come into the room and listened to her mother's story with such fake surprise, it looked like she was an actor. "There you are!" Donna Maria shouted. "Just wait until we get home." "What's happening?" Donna Angelica asked again. She called for Benjamin. The boy was in the stable and came running when he heard his mother's voice. "What is this, Benjamin? How could you do something so rude? Do you have no respect for your aunt or my house?" Benjamin was so confused. He looked like he had just seen a waterfall for the first time. He looked around and saw everyone watching him. "But what is it, Mom? I don't understand what you're talking about." Donna Angelica told him what Donna Maria had said. Benjamin denied everything. He said he hadn't left the stable and asked a young servant boy to confirm. This boy, who secretly carried love letters between Benjamin and Lucinda. didn't hesitate to say that since Benjamin had come down to the stable, he hadn't left once, too busy playing tricks on people who walked by. Donna Angelica turned back to her cousin. Carlos said, "You're mistaken, cousin. But I saw it with my own eyes." Carlos had come upstairs too, and whether to protect his brother, whom he didn't hate, or to stop an argument that might ruin the party, he backed up what the boy had said. But Donna Maria, who claimed to have seen everything, kept insisting and doubted the words of her nephews and the boy. It was a mistake, some said. Aunt was distracted and only imagined it. Mistake or distraction? Don't make me laugh. I saw it with my own eyes. Into this noisy argument walked young Batista. He wore a tailcoat, gloves made of soft leather, and a white necktie. He had come by carriage, even though he lived close by, just to arrive perfectly dressed. He heard the argument, asked what it was about, and decided Donna Maria must have made a mistake. She kept insisting. Batista, who had read a few science books, said in a serious tone, "Sometimes our imagination makes us see real things that aren't really there. Think of Brutus, who supposedly saw the ghost of Caesar. That was probably just a strong image in his mind, mistaken for something real. The eye has strange tricks. Science has studied this carefully." The young women turned away and walked to the window, all except Teresa, who stayed to listen to her boyfriend's words. The boys went downstairs to the stable. Batista kept talking. Since he had read about the optic nerve, he tried to explain how it worked. And when he mentioned beautiful eyes, Donna Angelica remembered a story about the eyes of the late Sanchez, from the year 1834. In the end, Donna Maria was convinced that she had only imagined what she thought she saw. Then Batista said, "Now, if Donna Angelica would give me the honor of a private word, I would be deeply grateful." Donna Angelica looked at him and said, "Now that I think of it, what a strange outfit for intrudo day." "My dear lady," Batista replied, "great feelings don't know the meaning of carnival." What a fine young man, thought Donna Maria. The lady of the house went with Batista to a quieter part of the house. Batista stood in the doorway, hat in hand, and looked at Donna Angelica with a serious face. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "My lady," he said, "for a long time now, I have carried in my heart one of those feelings that, if not handled well, can bring not only trouble to a home but even destroy great empires. But if handled right, that same feeling can bring the greatest happiness in life. I speak, my lady, of love. Love is like a cane to a blind man, like wind to a sailor, like health to a sick person, like the sky to a bird." Donna Angelica looked at him with interest. "So you are in love?" "Deeply," he said. "If this love were not returned, it would be like hell on earth. What is love without love in return? It would be like the vulture that ate Prometheus' liver every day. But I am lucky. I am loved as I love. As the Latin says, amor amor gignitur, love is born from love." She smiled slightly. "And what is it you want from me?" "I want the light," he said. "You hold my light in your hands. You can give it back to me if you choose." "I love your daughter, Donna Teresa. I wish to marry her." Donna Angelica had noticed some flirting between Teresa and Batista before, but she hadn't thought they were so close to marriage. What surprised her most was the timing. Battista explained that since the word intrudo comes from the Latin intritus, which means entrance, it was fitting that he should ask to enter the family on this very day. His wordplay brought back memories of her late husband, Thomas Sanchez, and she told a story from their early days together. "As for your request," she said finally, "if Teresa agrees, I have no reason to say no to a marriage that I hope will be peaceful and full of joy." "You are truly noble," Battista cried, and then he opened his arms wide and said, "My mother." Donna Angelica hugged him, though she thought him a little too dramatic. "When can I expect your final answer?" he asked. "Now, if you like," she said. "But better soon." "Then I will return tomorrow," he said. Just then, a loud scream rang through the house. Then another. And another. Soon, a terrible noise filled the air. Donna Angelica rushed to the front room to see what was happening, and Battista followed close behind. In a room no one could explain the cause of the commotion. The noise was coming from the stable. "It must be someone the boys dumped in water," said Donna Angelica, trembling. "Oh my God, these kids will end up giving me a big heartache one day." She tried to go downstairs, but Battista stopped her, seriously explaining that a lady should never go down during such chaos. The shouts kept going for a while, then stopped. A cold, shaky voice cursed the boys from outside. "Oh my God, those boys, what a shame." Someone climbed the stairs. A few seconds later, Mr. Tiburcio walked into the living room. He was wearing white, but completely soaked, like he had just come out of the ocean. He dripped water all over the floor as he walked in. "Jesus, what happened?" "My dear lady," Tiburcio said, "look at the way your boys treated me. Isn't this outrageous? I came into your home full of trust. And your sons, without me ever hurting them, grabbed me, shoved me into a tub, and poured a whole barrel of water on me with help from 2 little servants." Donna Angelica was furious, but the girls couldn't help laughing. To be honest, Tiburcio looked more funny than tragic. He was panting like a whale out of water. Battista thanked God he had arrived just in time to catch the boys in the act. That way, he avoided being teased himself. Tiburcio sat down, while Donna Angelica went to check if there was any dry clothes at home that would fit him. Meanwhile, Tiburcio was telling Donna Maria about the experience of being thrown into the tub. Battista was chatting with Donna Teresa and gave her the good news that everything was sorted out. Suddenly, Carlos appeared at the door of the living room, holding a big tin syringe. He put a finger to his lips to tell the girls to be quiet, then sprayed a jet of water straight onto Tiburcio's neck. Tiburcio screamed, grabbed the chair, and somehow dragged his wet body toward the door. But Carlos, who knew the old Parthian trick, ran away while giving him another jet of water right in the face. Donna Maria tried to calm Tiburcio down. He had promised to beat up the boys after what they did. "Don't be angry," she said. "It's just the way boys behave. They really do respect you." But Tiburcio was not convinced. "That's not respect," he replied. Just then, Donna Angelica came back into the room. She looked serious. "Mr. Tiburcio," she said, "please go to the sewing room. I've had some clothes put there for you." He obeyed and walked away. Then she turned to her sons. "You two, go upstairs now. she ordered. They did as they were told. Once they were all together, she asked, "What was that behavior back there?" The boys looked confused. "What do you mean, Mother?" they both asked at the same time. "You don't show respect to an old and serious man who comes to visit us. Is that how you behave?" "But it was just a joke," one of them said. "Well, I don't want any more jokes like that," she replied. "If you want to play around, do it with someone else. Not with people who come to my house." At that moment, Batista, who was Donna Angelica's future son-in-law, stepped in to help. "Madam," he said, "I believe these young men were only doing what boys their age often do. They didn't mean to offend anyone. They are good boys, full of respect for others, especially for those who are lucky enough to be welcomed into this home." "That's right," Carlos agreed. "So," Batista continued, "let's forgive them for what they did today. It's the kind of thing that happens on a day like this." "That's right," the boys said together. They walked over to Batista and thanked him for defending them. He shook their hands. But just as he was about to say something, the boys grabbed him by the arms. Before he knew it, they were carrying him across the room and then down the stairs. "Let me go," Batista shouted. "This is betrayal. I was helping you." But they didn't stop. Donna Angelica called out to them, but her voice was lost in the noise. Teresa started to cry. Donna Maria crossed herself in shock. Amid the chaos, Tiburcio returned to the room. He looked ridiculous. He was wearing a pair of Carlos pants that were too short, ending above his ankles, and a jacket from Benjamin that was far too long, hanging halfway down his back. When everyone saw him, they laughed even harder than when he was soaked from head to toe. Tiburcio leaned back in his chair, trying to look relaxed. "What's new? Any new trouble?" Angelica waved a hand in the air, clearly upset. "Oh, Mr. Tiburcio," she said, her voice sharp. "You have to take these two boys away from me. They're driving me crazy. Put them in jail." "Of course, Donna Angelica," he replied. "But what did they do this time?" "They pulled Mr. Batista downstairs." "What? They dared to do that too? Well, I'm not surprised." "Did they throw me into a bath?" Tiburcio couldn't help but feel a little better knowing he wasn't the only one they had targeted. A few minutes later, Batista came upstairs. He didn't dare enter the room right away. From the doorway, he asked Angelica if she could give him something to wear. She agreed without hesitation. Donna Angelica sent for the codfish, the same one used to punish the slaves, and went downstairs herself. "Come on, upstairs, or else you'll all get a beating," she shouted. The boys obeyed quickly. They knew Angelica wasn't someone who made empty threats. As the afternoon turned into evening, the boys decided to postpone the party for a few days. They changed clothes and stayed in the dining room. Batista came back into the room looking embarrassed. Tiburcio had calmed down a bit. Donna Maria began to laugh, and Angelica told a funny story about Sanchez. The girls sat down too. "Did you use all the lemons?" Donna Maria asked, looking at the two trays. "No," said Ermelinda. "We still have some left for tomorrow." "That's good," said Tiburcio. "That's the kind of fun I can enjoy." Lemons are nice and they keep people entertained. You're right, Batista agreed. But what about that bath? That was wild. That was rough. It should stop. And it will stop. Civilization can't accept that kind of thing. Exactly. The boys came back into the room. Tiburcio turned to Donna Maria to say something, anything, just to avoid looking at the two troublemakers. Batista, meanwhile, took out his pocket watch, held it to his ear, wound it up, and acted very busy doing small things like that to avoid making eye contact with Angelica's sons. No one noticed that both boys had their hands deep in the large pockets of their coarse jackets. They sat down and began chatting with each other, as if nothing had happened. Tiburcio and Batista didn't speak to the boys at first. But since it would look silly to stay mad after a bath, they slowly started talking again, and everyone became friends once more. It wasn't long, though, before Carlos stuck a paper tail on Tiburcio's back, and Benjamin did the same to Batista. Batista's tail went unnoticed at first. Tiburcio, however, had his back turned toward the group of girls, so they saw the paper Carlos had attached and burst into laughter. Tiburcio became suspicious. He turned to Carlos, who tried to look serious. "What are the girls laughing at?" Tiburcio asked. "I don't know," Carlos replied. "Let me check." "Oh, it's just a spot of lime on your jacket." "Let me clean it for you." Tiburcio agreed, thinking Carlos was being helpful. But instead of cleaning, Carlos cracked an egg right onto Tiburcio's back. Tiburcio realized at once that Carlos wasn't cleaning anything, was making a mess. The yolk dripped to the floor. Donna Angelica rushed toward Carlos, who took off running through the room. Batista stood up to stop him, but he still had the paper tail attached. Benjamin saw his chance and smashed an egg onto Batista's back too. I can't even begin to describe the chaos that followed. Everyone started shouting and running around. The noise was everywhere. The only ones who stayed calm were the two boys, who were finally taken to a room by Donna Angelica and locked inside. As night fell, everything grew quiet. Most of the guests left, except for Donna Maria and her daughter, who decided to stay until Ash Wednesday. Around 9 in the evening, Donna Angelica came back to let the boys out. She found them playing cards, completely relaxed. Tea was announced, and they joined the others at the table. Teresa gave them a furious look. Her boyfriend had been the target of their jokes. When it was time to go to bed, the young servant boy, who had been passing secret messages between Benjamin and Lucinda, approached the two boys. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. Carlos followed Benjamin to the bedroom, still thinking about what the boy had just told them. According to the servant, Batista had the habit of jumping over backyard fences late at night, sneaking all the way to Donna Angelica's house, just to talk to Teresa at her window. She often stayed up very late, and the two would whisper to each other from opposite sides of the window pane. This strange story had a reason behind it. The boy had been helping Teresa and Batista pass messages between them. But he had hoped in return for some kind of reward, especially a brand new jacket he had asked Batista for and been refused. Angry and feeling betrayed, the boy decided to get his revenge by telling everything. Carlos couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Is this true?" he asked Benjamin, looking serious. "Yes, sir," the boy said again, nodding. "He wants to marry Miss Teresa, but he won't even buy me a jacket. That's so cheap." Will he come here tonight? I think so, the boy replied. A wild idea popped into Carlos' mind. Why not wait for this Romeo of the backyards and play another trick on him? A bucket of water? The boy suggested with a grin. A bucket of water, Benjamin repeated, smiling. No, Carlos said, shaking his head. Something better. Let's think. While the two brothers whispered and planned, the girls went to Donna Teresa, and Lucinda shared the same room. "I'm so mad at Benjamin," Lucinda said as they got under the covers. "I didn't like what he did to your fiancé." "Shh. Don't speak so loud," Teresa whispered back. "It wasn't only him, it was Carlos. He's always the one who comes up with these ideas. Well, tomorrow I'll give them both a piece of my mind." "No, don't," Teresa said. "It's better if we say nothing." "Why not?" "Because you're only saying that because you're going to marry him." Teresa smiled but didn't answer. "It depends on me," she finally said. "Has Aunt Angelica said anything to you yet?" "No." "She will, though. Maybe tomorrow." "Yes, tomorrow." A sudden noise made them both sit up. "What was that?" Lucinda asked. "What do you mean?" Teresa replied. "Did you hear a scream?" "No. It's just an owl. You're imagining things." "I don't know," Lucinda said, pulling the blanket up to her chin. They both sat on the bed, a little nervous now. "What will you say?" Lucinda asked, "when Aunt Angelica asks if you want to marry Battistina?" Teresa laughed softly and said, "Old fool." Teresa sat by the window, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. She turned to Lucinda, who sat across the room brushing her hair. "Why, my God," Teresa whispered. "I also want to know what you'll say when." "When what?" Lucinda asked, tilting her head. "When your mother asks if you want to marry Benjamin." "Oh, come on," Teresa laughed nervously. "But tell me, go on." "I'll just say it's what I want." "That's it?" Lucinda raised an eyebrow. "Well then." "But that's not sweet enough. You should say, with all my heart." "Let's not. That feels too dramatic." Before Lucinda could reply, a faint whispering sound came from the yard. Both girls stood and walked to the window, peering out into the dark. "Nothing," Lucinda said after a moment. "Probably the wind." They stepped back inside and sat down again, the conversation picking up where it left off. 10 minutes passed, and then a soft whistle cut through the night air. Teresa jumped. "That's him." Lucinda began unbuttoning her dress. "Well then," she said, "go talk to him while I get ready for bed." Teresa walked back to the window and waved a white handkerchief. Battista, who had already climbed over the last fence, landed softly on the ground. He walked quietly to the well and stood below the window, looking up. "Why are you here tonight?" Teresa asked in a low voice. "Do you think I did wrong to come?" Battista replied. "You must be tired." "Tired of what?" Teresa had meant to tease him about the swim, but she hesitated, not wanting to embarrass him. Instead, she changed the subject. "Mother hasn't spoken to me yet." When will she? Maybe tomorrow. What do you mean? Teresa smiled. That shall say yes, of course. Tell me again, was she kind to you? She was very kind. I saw that she understood my love. And how could she not? She has such a noble soul, so pure and heavenly, filled with the scent of paradise itself. That last line came out like poetry, and it made Teresa stifle a laugh. Batista thought she was laughing at him, and Teresa thought Lucinda was laughing too. But Lucinda had already fallen asleep. Did you laugh at me? Batista asked. What a question. It seemed like it. Oh, don't insult the woman who will soon be your wife. Insult her? Never. I'd give my life to defend her from anyone who tried. But tell me, Teresa, he said, his voice softening, are you happy to marry me? Oh, very happy. So am I. We'll have a wonderful life together. I hope so too. Batista gave a start as a sudden spray of water hit him in the face. What was that? Teresa asked. I don't know, he replied, already thinking someone was watching them. No, tell me, what happened? He didn't answer. He imagined at once that someone was spying on them, and decided it was better to stay quiet and just leave. Unfortunately, the night was dark, and he might run into one of those at any moment. My God, Teresa cried. What is it? Nothing, he said. There must be something. Relax. It was just a sneeze. He tried to go back to where he had left off. As I was saying, your brothers are cheerful young men, but decent. They put you in the water on purpose, she said. No. I was just surprised for a moment. But now I see they didn't mean anything by it. Just then, another spray hit him from behind. Ow, he said, startled. What's wrong? She asked, worried. Nothing. Just a cramp, he lied. They really are good boys. Another spray hit his legs. They really are, he went on, shivering from both fear and the cold. If I saw them now, I'd hug them. 2 more strong sprays hit him all at once. Batista thought about asking for help, but he held back. A last bit of pride kept him from looking weak in front of his girlfriend. Teresa looked at him with tired eyes. They really are something, she said, clearly not believing him. Batista, soaked and embarrassed, tried to smile. Yes, he said softly. A real pair. He didn't say it with joy. There was something else behind his words, something sour, like the taste of a lemon you didn't want to bite. Teresa looked away. She didn't want to fight. Not tonight. Not ever, if she could help it. But she also didn't want to pretend. Still, she took his hand. Let's go home, she said. Yes, he replied. Let's go. And they walked away, the night swallowing them whole. Teresa couldn't make sense of him anymore. The splashing kept going, and he kept cutting his sentences short. She started to think he might be losing his mind. I hope you can forgive me, he said. It's getting cold. I should go. Already? Yes. Goodbye. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. Teresa closed the window. Batista looked around, saw no one watching, and tried to get close to the wall so he could jump over it. Just then, a whole bucket of cold water fell on his back. "Ow! Ow!" he shouted. He jumped over the wall anyway. But before he could land properly, he felt 4 strong arms grabbing his legs. He fell hard, scraping his hands against the rough stone. "What do you want from me?" he asked, shaking. The window opened again. Teresa appeared. They dragged Batista, yelling all the way to a large wooden tub already full of water. Teresa ran inside, screaming. She woke Lucinda, and together they woke the rest of the family. "It must be those devilish boys again. What did I ever do to deserve this?" cried Donna Angelica, jumping out of bed. Within minutes, everyone was up, holding lit candles, and heading to the back of the house. They opened the windows that looked into the backyard. Donna Angelica came down with a stick in her hand, ready for battle, and stepped into the yard where the chaos was happening. Batista was thrashing inside the tub. Her 2 sons held him down while the servant boy kept throwing buckets of water on him. "What is going on here?" she shouted, swinging her stick. Danger was close. The 2 boys grabbed Batista again. Carlos felt the stick hit his back. Then Benjamin took another hit. What could they do? The 2 brothers took Batista's body and used him like a shield. Every time Donna Angelica, blinded by anger, tried to hit her sons, it was the future groom who took the blows. Teresa ran down and stopped her mother's arm just as Batista had already taken the full force of the widow Sanchez's wrath. The beating stopped. Batista was taken upstairs, and Donna Angelica wanted to know how the 2 boys had managed to corner him in the backyard and treat him so roughly. That was the heart of the problem. Batista, not wanting to admit he had gone there to talk to his future bride, and afraid the boys might reveal the truth, said he had come to plan a joke with them, and that the whole thing had been just a game. At the same time, he gave the boys a pleading look, and they backed up his story. Because of that, they all avoided what would surely have been a serious punishment. That night, no one slept well. The next day, when Tiburcio heard what had happened, he smiled and said Batista had deserved the prank too. Carnival came to an end, which was good news for Batista, and Lent began also good news for him and his bride-to-be, since they got married and are very happy together. Batista sold his dry goods store and now plays checkers at a local pharmacy every afternoon.
Thank you for listening so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever a new book is read. Have you heard of Machado de Assis? Machado de Assis, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1839, is considered one of the greatest writers in Brazilian literature and a master of psychological realism. He was a novelist, poet, playwright, and short story writer whose works explore the complexities of human behavior with irony, subtlety, and deep introspection. Among his most famous novels are Dom Casmurro, which questions truth and memory, and the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, a satirical narrative told by a deceased man. Machado's literature often reflects the contradictions of Brazilian society, addressing issues like race, class, power, and identity in a sophisticated yet accessible style. Despite being born into poverty and facing racial prejudice, Machado de Assis rose to become the president of the Brazilian Academy of Letters and a symbol of literary excellence. His sharp wit and profound observations about society and the human soul make his works timeless and universally relevant. Today, he is recognized not only as a Brazilian icon, but also as a world-class author whose legacy continues to influence generations of writers and thinkers. Machado de Assis shows us that literature can be both elegant and critical, intimate and universal, humorous and profound. His stories remain as powerful and thought-provoking today as they were more than a century ago. Machado is a treasure of world literature, and through his voice, we discover the infinite layers of the human experience.